AI can replace the entire insurance industry for pennies. Their multi-billion-dollar executives and their workforce that they hire to fight you on claims. You can replace them. They're no longer needed. These companies that come in that are unlicensed, that's setting up these sham operations, they're no longer needed because AI can provide for all those management services. And so if you use them properly, we can actually solve all the problems that we encounter in the healthcare industry. It's just a question now, whose hands it's going to fall in? Is it going to be the clinicians, the healthcare providers, or is it going to be the profiteers and third parties? That's what the battle right now is on. Before my time is up, the mission is very simple. The control goes back to the doctors so they can care for patients. We reestablish the Hippocratic system across the world, which includes do no harm as your first oath. We uphold those. That's the only system that has worked for millennia. And execute our mission, which is provide healthcare to human beings and clean out all of the garbage and fat out of our industry. By the way, I've done over 50 podcasts with different people, and these questions have never been asked before.
Hey guys, welcome to the Sean Sias Show. We bring you strategies and stories to elevate your authentic influence. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, let's get into it. Hey guys, so today I could not be more excited to be with Dr. Kianor Shah. Kianor, I met you originally. Dr. Allison House was telling me about this fascinating individual that I just had to meet. And I have to be honest, when I was first looking you up, I wasn't sure if you were real because of the accomplishments that you are responsible for. They're just so expansive and so vast. Is that something that you run into often where people almost have to, I don't know, they're kind of in disbelief by how much you've accomplished?
Thank you for having me on the show, and thanks for the kind words. Well, just one thing builds on another, and then at some point in your career, everybody else flourishes at a different time. And for me, it's been in the last 5 years or so where things have come together really nicely. But yeah, I mean, from time to time, people wonder how all these things are done simultaneously. It takes a lot of time and dedication.
Yeah, I do realize that. And for the purposes of this show, I think what my listeners are always fascinated by is that how is it that an individual even decides to bet on themselves? You know, there's so much risk involved with pioneering something new, whether it's starting the AI association that you have, or the global summits, or the world top doctors. I'm probably not even saying those three things right. And yet they're just these massive movements. And yet starting them, like you didn't know that they were going to work. You didn't know that they were going to take off. And I guess that's kind of the innovator's dilemma. To really pioneer, you have to embrace risk. Have you always had a relationship with risk where you don't mind embracing the tension of it?
Yeah, throughout my career, I've fallen many, many times, but I get up and I get smarter about the way I do things, and I learn from those mistakes. You said betting on yourself. You're going to be the person that's going to invest most of your time, effort, care to your project or business. So betting on yourself is a good thing to do. Persistence and determination are very important. There have always been naysayers. For every project I started, they would come out of the woodworks and say, oh, this is not possible. Oh, this is too big. This is this and this is that. Just should motivate you more to do it and find a way. And if there is not a way, you got to create a way.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't heard of Dr. Shah, when I was just briefly looking over his CV, I think there's like 6 or 7 possible universities, all of them 4.0 GPAs. I mean, it's just like the heaviest hitter. I don't know how to say it. It's like you're a big deal, and yet you're doing it really to just advance dentistry. You're doing it because of your love for dentistry. Have you always been just kind of an entrepreneur? Because it seems like you also have these accolades for great clinical dentistry.
Entrepreneurship came mostly from experience in the field. I've been in clinical practice now for 18 years. And the academic part was just hard work and staying focused and doing the right thing there. But on the business side, I learned it mostly in private practice. I went back to school, got an MBA to kind of figure out how things are done the right way on international. My focus of my MBA was international studies. So before that, I was making a lot of mistakes, and so I learned. I've fallen down a lot, but you just got to keep getting up, and learning from those mistakes is key. If you keep doing the same thing and you expect different results, it's the definition of insanity. So now when I see a situation, I think to myself, what happened in the last 18, 19 years that I've been out, and how did I handle it, and what did I do wrong, and how can I do it better? And all of the naysayers have sort of, vast majority of them have disappeared. And now we have all the optimists at the table that are helping us grow these organizations.
So Dr. Shah, you got into dentistry. At what point, it seems like along the way with everyone's journey, they realize, wow, dentistry is it's not just clinical excellence. The fact that you even decided to get an MBA, I don't know, it's like sets you apart from, I would say, almost every dentist I know that understands the business world is so complicated. The market moves so quickly. So you have almost the science of dentistry, but then you have the art of business. So to be astute enough to say, you know what, I also want to be excellent in business. Was this early on in your dental journey, or was this kind of more like in the last decade?
No, actually, I took it very personal of what we learned in dental school, and then we came out in the business world and in a whole different environment. In dental school, they're talking about ethics, treating patients properly, and you guys went into this profession to help people. And then you get out, and then you see what's going on in all of these different enterprises where profit is put before patients. A lot of often unethical things that go on in dental practices that should not be. So I wanted to create a system that would address that and take that out of the equation. We go to school, they don't have any curriculum for us in terms of business. All these guys go out and it's sort of shot in the dark, try to learn how business works. And these kids come out now with all of these burdens. It's debt. They want to start their lives. They want to get married. They want to buy a house. They want to buy a car, but they don't know where to start. And they end up in these settings where they're pushed to produce and they have no equity. And that kind of didn't sit well with me. So I thought, maybe it's time to step up to the plate and figure out a system that works for everyone and preserves our sacred duty not to do no harm. So it took a very personal angle with me that kind of pushed me towards all of these things that I do.
Did you see yourself when you started out just kind of being a private practice, dentist and kind of being content with that? Or did you know, I'm going to disrupt, I'm going to change things because that's just who I am?
I at the beginning, I enjoyed it. I was practicing 6 days out of the week when I got out of the dental school, but no, not to this scale. I didn't think that I would take it this far, but one thing leads to another, and you create a path, and if you draw a painting and put it on the wall and you look at it every day, at some point it will become reality.
So for like, let's say a younger dentist that, just graduated dental school, is there a path that you blaze that people can follow? Did you follow someone else? Was there like a mentor of yours that kind of inspired you?
I got associated with a private practice right off school, and still after 18 years, I think that this is the best advice I can give our younger colleagues is, associate with another doctor, a senior doctor, as your stepping stone for your own vision, for your own dream, for your own practice in the future, and learn the good things from him or her, and don't necessarily pick up all their habits, but the solution is not to go work for corporations that pay you 20, 30% and some benefits. The important thing for you is to have equity in your business. So you have to start your own practice at some point if you want to grow. If you want to have all the freedoms that business owners have, you need to have your own practice. You cannot separate management from the clinical aspect of things because they go hand in hand. Business decisions that you make, the materials that you pick, the staff that you pick, the hours that you set, down the list it goes. It all comes down to chair side and affects the patients. So you cannot just here give this to somebody else and just show up to the clinic and do dentistry and have a supervisor tell you what room to go into and to do what procedure. This is not what this is about. So if the business side of things don't interest you, maybe the profession is dentistry is not healthcare in general. It's probably not a good fit. You have to kind of have them hand in hand to be able to render the best care to your patients and have the freedoms and the things that you want. So for a year or 2 or 3 or however long it takes for you to become comfortable, associate with a senior advisor and then use that as a stepping stone for your own practice and dream, where you maintain your equity and you can build a life around that, a good life, and take care of a lot of people. Do it the ethical way.
Yeah, it sounds like from everything you've already been saying, Dr. Shah, that you have a very established work ethic, like no questions asked. You have this ability to focus on what matters. You have this drive to just keep going, even in the face of, like you mentioned a few times, naysayers. Where did all this come from? Meaning, like, was your dad or mom entrepreneurial and they kind of just like inspired you to follow your own path? Or did you even kind of grow up in that place of struggle and you had to overcome, and that's kind of what really served you, in this last decade or so professionally? What, like, were there things in your childhood that you feel like really set you up to kind of be this pioneer that you are today?
I'm by no means from a wealthy family. I was born in Iran at the time when Khomeini died. I was there in the field where they were spraying water on everybody. I was 8 years old, and I went to Germany, and immediately the wall came down, late '89, and also they won the World Cup in soccer. And then I come to the U.S. For undergrad and dental school and all that. And 9/11 happened. I was class president at that time. So a lot of historic events have happened. Living in these 3 cultures with all these religions, customs, and norms that may have had something to do with it. But, the conclusion that I've reached is humans are inherently good, and you always have to find common grounds with people. That's one reason I do well with patients. We have a practice here in Southern California, and it's a 5-star practice on all platforms, and all review. And this has been like that for the 9 years I've had this practice. And I get to interact with people in a certain way that allows me to comfort them, even if they have anxiety. But something specific to what you asked in terms of has something pushed me towards that? Yeah, if you see the things that I have seen in third world countries and in other places and how people struggle, you feel very blessed to have these opportunities in this great country to grow.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the innovators and influencers that I've talked to, those that kind of don't take for granted, whether they are someone that immigrated here, they just show up with a different sense of appreciation for, like, hey, if I put my head down and really work hard, the American dream is possible. And yet I feel like so many individuals kind of just hope that good things are just going to come to them without them actually plowing, without them putting their hands to the plow. I think you could have been successful just as a clinical dentist, and yet it seems like you're this visionary that can't help but see. So even now with what you're doing with AI, you see the AI is on the rise and you just step up and lead. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing with AI, with this organization, and kind of what your vision is with it?
Certainly. You made a comment about plowing. It's very important that you go through those pains in order to get where you need to go. In undergrad, I was roofing and drywalling to buy my books to go to school. That's what it takes. And yes, the American dream is still alive. I'm a perfect example of it. But as to AI, it's a very broad topic to discuss. Suddenly after COVID, we come into this era, everybody's not talking about AI. It's a wild, wild west. So when I first started lecturing about the topic about a year and a half ago, I realized you're dealing with a behemoth that doesn't have any regulation around it, any governance, any advocacy, any policy. And that these companies are starting to pop up left and right. And somehow, in order to keep control of this behemoth, we need to design those things And so I started lecturing, and I was approached by two orthodontists from Georgia who had the idea of actually doing this in an organized fashion or association. So the three of us partnered up and established 22 divisions in this association that would address every aspect of AI in dentistry because it affects everything from management to the specialties to the GPs to the assistants, down the list that goes, even the supply chain. Everything is going to change in a dental office in the next decade or two. And things grew from there. We partnered with ISO and ADA and ANSI and a host of others to look at standards around artificial intelligence in dentistry, and started lecturing more and more across the country at annual state dental association events. We've been doing a lot of those. And the rooms are generally sold out. Everybody wants to know about it. They don't know where to start. This is sort of the first question that we get. And so I could talk hours about AI. Maybe if you want to ask me specific questions, I can address them.
So, what do you feel like might be a misunderstanding that might be common that like dentists think about either what AI can or can't do?
There's a misconception about AI in terms of what it can do for us in healthcare. This is in my opinion, it's a God's gift at this point, for a host of reasons. It's a lot more accurate than the human when it comes to diagnostics, picking up cavities, existing restorations, bone loss, what have you. So we have to use AI for our benefit, not to allow it to subdue us. People want to go to humans. They don't want to go to robots. They're not going to go to robots to get healthcare. So I don't know why people are afraid. We had cell phones come out or the internet. You had those same people resisting and refusing. But anytime you have technology that improves the quality of human life, you need to embrace it because it's inevitable that it's going to come into commerce and it's going to stay. Those people that were afraid of the internet, they can't even drop the internet now. They couldn't go back to the 50s if they dropped the internet today. So if we are smart, we'll use AI to solve all of our problems. We still need oversight by a dentist, but it'll allow you to reduce healthcare costs to patients, not necessarily to clinicians, increase access, all of these things that these management companies are talking about, increasing access to care, providing management services. Well, honestly, if you use AI properly, you talk to 8 out of 10 dentists will tell you I have a problem with insurance. AI can replace the entire insurance industry for pennies. They're multi-billion-dollar executives and their workforce that they hire to fight you on claims. You can replace them. They're no longer needed. These companies that come in that are unlicensed, that's setting up these sham operations, they're no longer needed because AI can provide for all those management services. And so if you use them properly, we can actually solve all the problems that we encounter in the healthcare industry. It's just a question now, whose hands going to fall in? Is it going to be the clinicians, the healthcare providers, or is it going to be the profiteers and third parties? That's what the battle right now is on.
Yeah, I can see that because it's kind of like DSOs. The second Fortune 500 companies or big investment companies understood the money that was available in dental, non-dentist owned business people showed up in droves to dentistry, and they're like, "Oh, we want to get our hands on that money." And I'm not saying that the intention was necessarily bad, but I'm like you. I envision hopefully a future where dentists are leading, dentists are pioneering, dentists are understanding what AI can do in dentistry, and they're helping to shape it instead of simply business people that maybe don't understand what's actually best for patient care.
Even if they're sincere, they're not trained to think like us. They're not trained to have the oaths that we have taken in the back of their minds when they do decisions that they do. When private equity moved into dentistry for millennia, you have had the Hippocratic system. You've had communism, socialism. You've had all of these different isms that have come around. Capitalism. They do not solve the healthcare problem. Healthcare is a unique, noble industry that focuses on human beings. It's not a product for sale. It's not a service. It's a very unique situation. And they came in the last 5 decades. It's been a disaster. The profession is turning into marketing functions. Patients don't trust us. They think we're trying to clean out their pockets because of all the things that happen in these organizations that you talk about. And frankly, in 47 states of the union, these operations are illegal. The doctor that's supposed to be providing the care, the licensed dentist, is supposed to be on site and have oversight of the operation. That's what we went to school for 20. But when you set up these management companies in Nevada and Wyoming and Delaware, and then you hire a dentist to put his or her name on 20, 30 offices so it looks legitimate, and then you control all the assets, and then you turn around and get these younger guys to push them for production. That's not what dentistry is about. And they get away with it because the laws aren't being enforced. The laws are on the books. So yes, dentist, you don't need to have an empire of 100 offices. You can have everything you want out of one clinic. A wonderful family, retirement, thousands of patients that adore you, and the good deeds that you do for them. And then have your own practice or help existing doctors to take over their practice. Because if these organizations, where there's a conflict, there's an inherent conflict of interest between the clinical side and the business side. They cannot be separated. If they take over, we're going to be factory workers. If they take over with AI, we are going to be one. And that's what we are trying to prevent.
From what I've always heard, Dr. Shah, from dentists, is that they're like, well, hey, you, the patient, would you rather me as a dentist get more CE or learn about how to run a more profitable business? Well, when it comes down to it, you want the dentist to still be great clinically. You've managed to find out how to balance being great clinically with also getting an education, getting your MBA, and learning how to be savvy as a businessman. Do you think that is going to be more common for dentists in the future, that they're going to need to have something like an MBA, or just you think mainly for leaders in dentistry?
There are organizations in accreditation and quota and others I encourage the listeners to write letters to, where you need a business curriculum in dental school versus us coming out. And I don't know if this is by design, because a lot of the stuff that we learned in dental school was completely useless. And a lot of stuff that we could actually use that weren't taught to us. So I think in the future, we need to have business curricula implemented into dental schools. That's very, very, very important because a well-educated and well-skilled with a good business acumen professional is not in the best interest of all these parties. And we need to bring that back. And yes, I would recommend my colleagues today that struggle with business to take an MBA. It really comes down to if you're willing to make the sacrifices it takes to get there. When I was doing my MBA, I was doing it at night while I was practicing during the day. So you have to want to pay the price to get what you want.
So Dr. Shah, like I am fascinated by what people do, but I'm so much more fascinated by who they are. And I keep trying to, as I'm listening to you, understand almost like the anomaly that you are, because paradoxically, it seems like you are this academic. You study, you're learned, you're constantly getting more education. And yet at the same exact time, you're like an inventor and an innovator that creates things and plays around with ideas and solutions that can be disruptive. And most often, if you look at an academic, they like staying in the land of theory. They don't really want to actually have to launch something that could go catastrophically wrong and fail. They're not the Jeff Bezos of the world. And yet you seem to, again, be in both worlds simultaneously and have no problem with that. Do you identify yourself more as the academic or more as the trailblazer innovator?
For about 10 years, I was lecturing mostly on academic topics, head and neck anatomy, implants, et cetera, et cetera. And I do that still from time to time for fun, but now I'm more focused on the business side of things. It's a balance for sure. One of people's biggest fears is public speaking, and taking years to overcome that kind of scenario, which is relevant to both parts of this discussion. But the business side came much later. Academic was mostly where I started to get attention. All of us doctors like continuing education. It brings us together. We are really fond of that, hence conferences. For me to have been able to roll out my overall plan after so many years I was out of school was to improve my academic skills and lecturing skills and get involved and go religiously to conferences. So that's all I was doing. I was going from Chicago to New York to Miami to LA and everywhere in between, and taking courses and going to conferences, shaking hands, creating a network, learning from others. One advice I can give everyone here is always associate yourself with people that are smarter than you, and you will learn from them. And then take a little bit from everyone that you meet, be it an investor, be it an academic, be it a bureaucrat, be it an accountant, be it a lawyer. Always take a little message from them and sort of pack it in the back of your mind of what that individual would do in that regard. And you start having all of these thoughts before you take action from multiple different perspectives on how it could be interpreted. So yes, I still enjoy both. There's a balance to be found, and again, it's a process. And but people these days, the millennials and or younger generation, they want everything right now, today. It doesn't happen that way. This is not how the world works. You have to work for it, and it sometimes takes 10 years, 20 years of persistence and determination to get where you want to go. And that's very important also.
It does sound like what's happening now in your life is from a larger vision that you had probably, like you said, a decade and a half ago. And you just continued to stay steady and continued to show up. Were there any seasons in your life where, I don't know, things were, challenging, or maybe there was a low point or you weren't sure if you could keep going? Because right now, like you said, almost the last 5 years, there's a ton of visibility. There's a lot of traction, almost like a lot of favor on what you're doing. And it's almost like the world's opened up to it. Was there ever a time where you weren't sure it might work and you kind of encountered a really challenging crossroads?
Yeah, I can think of one very vividly. By the way, both operations now, the Global Summits Institute and the Dental Artificial Intelligence Association, are 6-continent affairs, inclusive of all territory. When I first launched World's Top Doctors on January 1, 2020, we named the 100 doctors as constituents of that. The idea was basically to utilize their wisdom, their connections, and make lifelong friends with them and come out. So I'm thinking, okay, they put 100 guys in the room and invented the atomic bomb. If I put 100 guys in the room, doctors, I can figure out how to solve this healthcare problem. So that's how it all started. And I pushed it out, and a lot of people completely went insane. The comments, the bullying, you'll always be remembered for this gimmick. What are you selling? And this and that. So I was like, man, this is unbelievable. I'm trying to do something nice for these guys, and they're coming at me saying I'm selling plaques, which we never sold anything. I've never raised a penny for any of those organizations to date. Now this is many years later. It's not about money. This is a vision. This is self-funded by these hands doing surgery at the clinic. So they started accusing me of having spent years and years of sending them like top this, top that. But over time, I continued. Immediately after that, I asked those very same people, we issued it in January. In March, when at the height of COVID, I asked all of them to come and give a presentation for an hour and a half, which got over 2.2 million viewership across the world of dental care providers. But between those 2 months, I was sort of devastated. I'm like, man, these guys are just completely trumping on everything I've ever worked on and worked for. But they've all disappeared, not a peep. It's 5 years later, and the organizations are growing, and there was probably 24 of them that were really aggressive about the world's top doctors. But then they realized, hey, this is actually for my benefit. Why am I fighting this guy? He's talking about doctor to doctor. He's talking about increasing collaboration between doctors. So they finally understood that sometimes you have to take a step back before we make judgment on people or in projects. But yeah, that was probably the one that hurt the most, but it didn't deter me. I don't think anything will.
I mean, I think at this point you have too much momentum. But yes, as you're sharing that, Dr. Shaw, I'm like reminded of the Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena, where it's not what the critic that counts. It's the person that's in the arena that's trying. And my guess is some of those comments came from individuals that probably wish that they would have come up with a strategy like that. And not just come up with a strategy, but actually had the courage to actually execute it and implement it and face the possibility of being misunderstood. And you had to. And I'm shocked as someone that is innovative and entrepreneurial that your first go at it, well, it seems like it was your first go at it, was like global. It wasn't California. It wasn't US based. It was already this world, top doctors in the world. And was it kind of one of those like, hey, just go big? Like, why not? Like, just like that's kind of what you had envisioned, huh?
How do I put this? The enemies of the people in our profession, they're working tirelessly in the US and Europe to expand their vision. So in order to stop them, to halt them, to put a break on this thing, we had to come up with something that's much bigger than them. So it had to be a six-continent ordeal saying, hey guys, we're watching you. You know what you're doing. And you're kind of restricted to these areas right now, but we're warning everybody around the world that you might be coming to them. So that was the first step to take, is go to all those people that I've met at those conferences, the speakers, the lecturers, the go-to people. Some of them had written the books I went to school with, and ask them, hey, doc, can you help me with this? Can you come into this? And that's how it all starts. You have a vision and you execute.
But it's like a seed always produces after its own kind. So in order to birth something global, you have to have like a global seed inside of you, you have to give yourself permission to play at that level. Did you always have permission from yourself, or was that something that in the first decade of you kind of getting, confidence? Because even that, I love your take on confidence, because I don't know if it's specific to just men, but I know it's so important to have that sense of, I can do this. If I set my mind on this, I can accomplish it. Even in the face of failure, I'm going to keep getting up. I don't know. Like, you just seem like you have this very strong sense of self. And it's like, if I set out to do something, I'm going to do it. Like, as if all you've ever known is victory. Is that true?
I don't know about well, victory. You kind of progress to that. Well, okay. How do I? Okay, that's a little complicated. So, ask me a specific question regarding to this, and let me see if I can respond that way.
Yeah. Meaning, are you familiar with Tom Brady?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So the idea that someone that really didn't have the best college career, he was always having to fight for a starting job, and then he's the fourth quarterback on the depth chart when he gets drafted by the Patriots, pick
Pick one.
199. And yet, for some reason, for him to still have the almost audacity to look at Robert Kraft, the owner, during training camp and say, I'm the best decision that this organization has ever made. In hindsight, it looks like, well, of course you are. But at that moment, he hadn't even made the team. And I'm fascinated by, what is it about? Like, he could have just been a lunatic that was crazy to be like, no, like, I'm the best decision that this organization's ever made. And I'm just saying, a lot of dentists would never have given themselves permission to lead a global movement. And yet I get the idea that you didn't lose sleep over it. Like, I don't think it was this big transition for you, as if you've just always thought in that big way. Does that kind of make sense what I'm
Yes,
getting at?
some people are very risk adverse. I think it's about risk and reward. For me, in my vision, I look around myself, and everyone that we know or see are not going to be around in 50 to 100 years. I think to myself, I see people getting into accidents. They pass away. Life is a very fragile thing. If you don't take the risk, you can't have the reward that you want, be it in a good deed that you're doing, whatever it is that you define as success. So for me, the permissions are in the box. It's go, go, go. So we have already had that agreement long ago. Tom, again, if you don't have that big vision, you can't get there. And he had that fire in him. That fire is there as well. And a gut feeling. There's a lot of decisions that are made based on gut feelings and fast moving, high performance individuals. That comes from experience as well. But he started low and he worked himself up. He took the risks. He got the reward. That's what to do to grow. If you're just going to sit there and say, hey, this is too risky for me. I'm near retirement, and everything changes around you. When I first came to the US, a dollar was a big deal. $5 was a big deal. You could get all kinds of stuff with $5. And now, you can't go out for a meal unless you spend $100. So sitting around and just playing with these numbers and saying, oh, this is how much I'm going to have. I'm not going to take any risk. I'm going to just steadily do the same exact thing. Life's going to pass you by, and this is just my opinion. Everybody has the right to do it the way they find it to be. I don't want to be that person that's going to wake up at 65 and then realize I worked all my life and now I got not much to show for it, as our senior citizens who are retired now are struggling with inflation and income, and they were promised something else, 30, 40 years ago. So you can either take some risk in to grow, or you can be part of the herd, I guess, and just hope and pray that everything is going to be okay.
So, Dr. Shah, as you're going about your week, your month, are there any like mindsets that you have to almost be like on guard against, whether it's doubt or whether it's discouragement or whether it's even like a temptation to take your foot off the gas? Like, have you developed a sort of almost like call it like a mental castle where you don't let in certain threats because hey, that's not going to lead me down a place I want to go? Or right now, do you just have a moat that's protecting your castle so well that you don't have to fight insecurities? I'm trying to know, in what way
You're
are
an
you still
amazing
human?
interviewer, by the way. I've done over 50 podium podcasts with different people, and these questions have never been asked before. So kudos there.
Thank you.
I have a very set schedule and a very set system. The Global Summits Institute's got 24 projects. Every project is led by a different doctor. We meet, the 12 of us meet, and they oversee the other divisions. So I really only speak to those that run the various. Then there's the Global Summits Institute, the Dental AI Association, who has the two partners and founders, co-founders. And then there are continental presidents. We broke up Asia into East and West, and the Americas into North and South, and also Africa to North and South as well. And the continental presidents essentially oversee the ambassadors, which each country allocates one ambassador. So managing that in that scenario is normal when you have these groups that you chat with on a regular basis and everybody knows what's going on across the world. But my day starts normally around 2 or 3 in the morning, a.m. I wake up when there's no hustle bustle, there's no noises, there are no kids running around, and I can really focus. So do a little exercising, get on the computer and start pounding responses. I get anywhere between 200 to 400 emails a day that come through that I have to process either in between patients or in the mornings. So by between 2 to 5, I get through those. I do a little walk, clear my head, and I have sort of board meetings on my own in my head on the road. So I'm usually on the road, well, probably somewhere in your neighborhood at 5 in the morning walking. And that allows me to really, really clear my mind and set my plans for the day. I practice 2-3 days a week. It fluctuates between seasons. So we're in Palm Desert. High season, I do 3 days. Low season, I do 2. And the hour is accounted for. Certain days I do conference calls, Wednesdays and Fridays. And certain days I'm in clinical practice. So it's all organized. It's been going on 7-day-a-week operation of over 2 decades now, even going into undergrad. I had this tribe, you know, having not had much family in the States, there wasn't really any time to take off for vacations. They're always back in Germany or Iran or somewhere else. So I worked through them and I got used to it. So it's now fun. For me, a vacation is when I go to a conference to lecture and meet my colleagues there. That I consider a very good time. So you have to plan, but it's systematics that's very important. AI is not smarter than you. Your brain is the most intelligent form of a being there is. Artificial intelligence is just machine learning. It's data that you're manipulating, you're feeding information to. But artificial intelligence can never do what the human brain or what God's work is, so to say. It'll never get there because it's too complicated. There are feelings involved, there are behavioral aspects, there are certain things. You can program a machine only so far. So in that regard, I always say that let's use artificial intelligence for our benefits to make life easier for us, to reduce healthcare costs, to solve our problems, and figure out a kill switch. That's all.
Okay, so you are clearly a man on a mission. Just, however you want to share it, like what would ideally the next 5-10 years look like with your organizations, with your impact, with where you're headed?
Before my time is up, the mission is very simple. The control goes back to the doctors so they can care for patients. We reestablish the Hippocratic system across the world, which includes do no harm as your first oath. We uphold those. That's the only system that has worked for millennia. Given globalization and AI, we can achieve that now because the local liquidation bodies, local legal bodies are not as efficient anymore. And we're all learning from each other, and doing a filling is the same for me or for somebody in Russia or somewhere else. So I'm hopeful that before my time is up, my service in this profession, that we go back to where we were, 60 years ago before all these third parties moved in, and we execute our mission, which is provide healthcare to human beings and clean out all of the garbage and fat out of our industry. So that's essentially the short version of it. How are we going to get there? I have a plan. And so do our most loyal partners and executive ambassadors, chairs and regents, everybody else that's involved in the project. And in God we trust.
So if there's people that are listening right now that could potentially help you, what are you needing? Are you needing help from like PR agencies? If there's writers or editors at like magazines to write stories, is it marketing? Is it just awareness? Like if you could wave your magic wand right now and get the help that you need to be able to advance the mission that you're on, what would that be?
Well, first and foremost, we would like like-minded individuals to join either of the two organizations. We need to build up everything in the Dental AI Association, from the Innovation and Technology Division to books that we are writing, to journals, to so human support in terms of labor would be phenomenal. Marketing, I spoke to over 30 magazines this last week. We've been published in a lot of them. They're pushing out a lot of press releases right now across the world for the 2025 Doctors World Gala, which happens in Sardinia. This event, they're inviting all the 1,000 key opinion leaders that are now part of the world's top doctors movement to come there so we can really sit down. And we have established a commission called the HEX Commission, which involves pharmacists, optometrists, chiropractors, medical doctors, dentists, etc. And this HEX Commission, we are envisioning to be oversight body over everyone else in the healthcare industry. So we make sure that the regulators are acting properly. And that's going to happen at the World Gala. I invite all of my colleagues to come there. We're going to spend 3 days together networking with all of these key opinion leaders, and also looking at creating a blueprint of how we're going to use AI to get where we need to go. Nothing is impossible. So if you really want to be a part of that, what is it, 4 months now? We are going to be holding that on June 12th to 14th in Sardinia, Italy. That's the second time we're doing it. Last, in 23, we had about 500 doctors there. It was pretty much sold out. We had to change venue this year to a bigger one, which is Forte Village, one of the most resorts, according to various magazines. We invite you to come there for a historic and monumental event that may reshape the way we do things in the healthcare industry. We have invited World Health Organization members, United Nations, European Union, ADA, FDI, down the list it goes. World Economic Forum, others. We want them to hear how things could be in the healthcare industry versus what we have now. So that's another area, but any kind of support that we could get from our colleagues. See, we have a guy that's right now doing as a dentist, and he's amazing with all of the CRM and the websites. Every doctor or healthcare provider or support member that has certain skills that they can bring to the table outside of the clinical stuff. I have certain skills, you have certain skills, the next person has certain skills. We would appreciate those as we expand slowly into all these territories. There's also a humanitarian component to the Dental AI Association, which means that if we have this technology that we're going to export from Europe or the United States, where we tend to do things better than most other countries with tech, you're going to have billions of people benefiting from it. What's more beautiful than that?
Okay, so for our listeners, where do you want their eyeballs to go so that they can join this movement or even potentially look into attending this event in June?
DentalAIA.org. There's a tab that's a membership tab. There's no cost to pre-register. You know, money has never been my driving force because ideas create money, not the other way around. So we want to create ideas and stepping stones. So I encourage our colleagues, be it a support staff member or a dentist or a dental specialist or any person in architecture, design, or marketing, or any of those individuals, there are various categories, to pre-register there. We are finishing up South Africa and South America. Actually, right now, we got a couple of territories to fill. And once the whole globe is filled, we're going to open up to membership. And that's when we will come out to, in terms of ambassadors, a couple of the guys are running a little behind. But once that's done, we are going to be full force AI. Let us help you. You don't have to have this question anymore about where do I get started. It's the future, guys. I mean, we cannot ignore it. We cannot avoid it. And some of the medical, dental kind of individuals, they like to see their children become doctors as the next generation. I got a 6-year-old daughter that, you know, she wants to be like daddy. She wants to be a dentist. So we have to preserve our profession for the next generations to come. I think DAIA, DentalAIA.org, is the best place to start. If you think you have something of tremendous value, a technique, an idea, a concept that you want to share with our colleagues across the world, then I would go to Top 100 DOC, complete the nomination form. That'll get you into that network. And these are all high-performing heavy hitters that have done something of value for doctors and patients. And I encourage you guys to go there. So those are probably your two best bets to get started with us.
Okay, Dr. Shah, so this is the final question. You've been so generous on this entire interview. So the question is this. So you're walking down the street, you could say at 5 a.m. if you want, and off in the distance you see 18-year-old Kianor. And you're going to pass him and just have a brief moment to share one sentiment. What do you share with him?
Oh, that's a deep question there. The 18-year-old Kianor, what was I doing? I would say, that's really deep, Sean. Let me think about this one. I would tell him, hey, you know, you don't know anything right now. You think you know it all, but you don't know anything. Listen to people that have experience, that are older than you, which is the same that applies to me today. I don't know anything. We think we know so much. The world is so full of information. And I would tell him that if you learn from other people's mistakes, you won't do the same. And you won't pay the price for it, which would translate to something like a lot of mistakes I've made since I was 18 that have cost me dearly, financially, mentally, physically, whatever you want to call it. So if I would have listened or searched out and learned from mistakes of others, I would have been in a position to avoid those headaches and have a much more simpler scenario. So now I'm always seeking to find out what their experiences were, what happened to them, what did they learn from there. That's the advice I would give an 18-year-old Kianor.
Dr. Shah, it's just been fascinating to see someone that is as accomplished as you and yet has such a marked humility about them, recognizing in this acknowledgement of like, I listen when I'm around other people that are smarter because I want to learn. This acknowledgement of like, you understand it takes collaboration and so much teamwork to make visions happen. And you have so much honor about you, and yet you have this also incessant drive to make not just dentistry better, but really, healthcare on a global stage. It has just been an honor just to interview you and hopefully to kind of, get some of those mindsets and those high performance habits and hacks that you have to share those with other individuals that might want to know what's it like to be a pioneer that's an amazing clinical dentist and at the same exact time has an MBA and is doing such disruptive work that's so positive. So I just want to say, Dr. Shah, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really enjoyed this session, more so than others in the past. You're very, very good at asking a question and provoking some thoughtful discussion. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.